The massive chamber stretched out like a metallic ocean before Jake Morrison. He had never seen so many different alien species in one place. The Galactic Council building was the size of 10 football stadiums, and every seat was filled. Jake pulled at his human uniform collar and looked around nervously. "Stop fidgeting," whispered Lisa Grant, the human ambassador sitting next to him. "We need to look confident." Jake tried to relax, but it was hard. Today, 847 different alien species would vote on humanity's future. The humans had been part of the galactic community for only 5 years. They thought they were making friends and learning about the universe. They were wrong. The Zephyrian speaker stood up at the center of the chamber. His blue skin shimmered under the bright lights, and his forearms moved gracefully as he spoke. "Today we decide the fate of the species called humans," the Zephyrian announced. His voice echoed through the chamber in perfect galactic standard language. "They have shown abilities that concern many of us. They adapt too quickly. They learn too fast. They create new technologies that we do not understand." Jake felt his stomach drop. This did not sound like the friendly meeting they had been promised. "We have 3 choices," the Zephyrian continued. "We can give humans full membership in our council. We can ask them to leave galactic space, or we can reclassify them as a resource species." Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. A resource species meant slavery. It meant humans would be forced to work in dangerous places, fight wars for other species, and have no rights at all. Dr. Alex Kim watched the proceedings from the human research station orbiting a nearby planet. The transmission was coming through clearly, and Alex could see the vote tallies appearing on the giant screen above the chamber. Species after species stood up to cast their votes. The Korthak voted for slavery. The Velixians voted for slavery. The Altarians voted for slavery. Alex watched in growing horror as the numbers climbed higher and higher. "This cannot be happening," Alex whispered to the empty research lab. Back on Earth, President Katie Sullivan sat in the White House Situation Room, watching the same transmission. Her advisors sat around the table in stunned silence as the votes kept coming in. "Ma'am," said General Chris Thompson, "we need to prepare for the worst. Our intelligence suggests they have been planning this for months." Katie nodded grimly. The signs had been there, but humanity had chosen to ignore them. Alien species had been asking too many questions about human biology, human reproduction rates, and human military capabilities. Now they knew why. Captain Ryan Walsh commanded the small human defense fleet stationed near Jupiter. He received an urgent message as the vote continued. "Captain," came the voice of Lieutenant Nina Foster, "we are detecting massive alien fleet movements throughout the solar system. They are taking positions around all our colonies." Ryan looked at his tactical display. Hundreds of alien ships were moving into blockade positions. The vote was not even finished, but the aliens were already acting like they had won. "How long do we have?" Ryan asked. "Unknown, sir. But they are not trying to hide their movements. I think they want us to see them." In the council chamber, the vote was nearly finished. Jake Morrison could not believe what he was seeing. Out of 847 species, only 1 had voted against enslaving humanity. The Epsilon Centauri delegation had cast the only vote in favor of human freedom. "The motion passes," announced the Zephyrian speaker. "Humanity is hereby reclassified as a resource species. They have 3 standard galactic months to comply with new regulations or face pacification measures." The chamber erupted in cheers and applause from hundreds of different alien species. Jake felt sick. Lisa Grant sat frozen in her chair, unable to process what had just happened. The Zephyrian speaker raised his arms for silence. "I will now explain the reasoning behind this decision," he said. "Humans are dangerous, but not in the way we usually think of dangerous species. They do not have the strongest weapons or the fastest ships, but they have something worse." The chamber fell silent. "Humans adapt," the Zephyrian continued. "Put them on a frozen world and they find a way to survive. Put them on a desert planet and they thrive. Give them a problem and they solve it in ways we never imagined. They breed quickly, they learn faster than any species we have ever encountered, and they show disturbing levels of innovation." Jake wanted to stand up and argue, but Lisa held him back. "If we allow humans to develop freely, they will eventually surpass us all. Their technology will become better than ours. Their colonies will be more successful than ours. Their species will spread across the galaxy and push the rest of us aside. We cannot allow this to happen." The speaker paused and looked directly at the human delegation. So we will use their abilities for our benefit. Humans will mine the worlds too dangerous for our people. Humans will fight the wars we do not want to fight. Humans will solve the problems we cannot solve. They will serve the galaxy instead of threatening it. Dr. Alex Kim turned off the transmission and sat in the darkness of the research station. Everything humanity had worked for was gone. All their dreams of joining a peaceful galactic community had been destroyed by fear and greed. On Earth, President Katie Sullivan stood up slowly. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said to her advisors, "we are now at war with the entire galaxy." General Thompson nodded. "What are your orders, ma'am?" "Prepare our people for the worst," Katie said. "But also send a message to every human colony, every research station, every ship in space. Tell them what has happened." "And tell them something else. And what, ma'am?" "Tell them that the galaxy is about to learn why no species in galactic history has ever voted to enslave another intelligent race. There is a reason slavery died out among the stars. The aliens are about to remember what that reason is." Captain Ryan Walsh received the president's message an hour later. He looked out at the alien blockade ships surrounding human space and smiled grimly. "They think they know what humans are capable of," he said to his crew. "They have no idea. The galaxy had voted. Humanity would serve or humanity would die. But the aliens had made one crucial mistake. They assumed that enslaved humans would remain human. They were about to discover that humans only stayed human when they chose to. The 3-month deadline began counting down. Across human space, people received the news with shock, anger, and something else. Something the aliens had not expected and did not understand. Humans had always been most dangerous when they had nothing left to lose. 6 months had passed since the vote. Captain Ben Parker stood on the surface of Zirion 7, a planet so hostile that even the Korthak overseers had to wear full environmental suits. The air was poison, the ground was radioactive, and the temperature swung between freezing and boiling every few hours. Ben wore only basic mining gear. After 3 months on this hellish world, his body had adapted in ways that amazed even him. His lungs processed the toxic air without difficulty. His skin had developed natural radiation resistance. His internal temperature regulated itself automatically. "Human Slave Unit 7742, barked Overseer Grack through his suit's speakers. "Increase mining output by 20% or face punishment." "Yes, Overseer," Ben replied calmly. What Grack did not know was that Ben's mining crew was not actually mining rare metals. They were gathering materials for something far more dangerous. Dr. Amy Rodriguez knelt by a strange crystalline formation deep in the mine. Before the vote, she had been a biochemist working on human genetic adaptation. Now she was officially classified as mining equipment. But Amy had made discoveries that the galaxy's greatest scientists had missed. "The mineral composition is perfect," Amy whispered to Ben when Grack moved away. "Human DNA does not just adapt to new environments. It actively reshapes them. We are not just surviving this place, we are changing it." Amy had noticed the changes weeks ago. The poisonous plants near human settlements were becoming less toxic. The radioactive soil was slowly becoming safer. Even the planet's violent weather patterns were becoming more stable. Meanwhile, on Earth, General Chris Thompson coordinated with resistance cells across human space. The aliens had made a critical error. They had scattered humans throughout the galaxy, thinking this would prevent organized resistance. Instead, they had seeded human agents on hundreds of worlds. "Report from the Titan colony," said Lieutenant Nina Foster, reading from her datapad. "The Velixian guards report that human prisoners are actually gaining weight and growing stronger on reduced rations." Chris nodded grimly. "What about Mars?" "Same story, sir. The humans there are not just surviving the labor camps. They are thriving, and the Korthak administrators are starting to get nervous. On Mars, the Red Planet's human colony had been converted into a massive labor camp, but something strange was happening. The humans were supposed to be weak and demoralized after months of slavery. Instead, they were healthier and stronger than ever. Lieutenant Colonel Maya Stevens watched from her cell as human workers effortlessly lifted loads that should have been impossible. The Martian atmosphere was thin and cold, but humans no longer needed breathing masks. Their lungs had adapted to extract oxygen from almost nothing. "The guards are scared," whispered Private Jack Turner from the next cell. "They do not understand what is happening to us," Maya smiled. "They thought enslaving us would break us. They have no idea that pressure just makes humans stronger." Dr. Sam Hughes worked in a Velixian bioresearch facility on the other side of the galaxy. The Velixians had enslaved him to study human biology, hoping to find weaknesses they could exploit. Instead, Sam was learning secrets about human potential that even humans had never known. Fascinating, Sam muttered, as he studied his own blood samples under an alien microscope. Human genetic code is not fixed like other species. It responds to environmental pressure by rewriting itself in real time. The Velixian supervisor approached his workstation. "Slave unit, what have you discovered?" "The humans adapt faster than we thought," Sam replied truthfully. "Much faster." What he did not tell the supervisor was that human adaptation was not random. It was directed, conscious. Humans could literally think themselves into new evolutionary forms. Across the galaxy, reports were starting to come in that made alien administrators nervous. Human slaves were not breaking down under impossible conditions. They were becoming something new. Something the galaxy had never seen before. Captain Tony Brooks commanded a hidden human fleet in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. His ships had been declared destroyed by alien forces, but they were very much alive. For 6 months, they had been intercepting alien communications and learning disturbing facts. "Sir," reported his intelligence officer, "we are receiving reports of alien colonies going silent. Not destroyed, just empty." Tony studied the star charts on his command screen. 12 alien settlements had simply vanished in the past month. No distress calls, no signs of battle, no bodies. The inhabitants had just disappeared. "Any pattern to the disappearances?" Tony asked. "Yes, sir. They are all colonies that volunteered to take human slaves. Dr. Rachel Kim worked from a hidden laboratory on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. She was Alex Kim's sister, and she had been developing something that would change the course of the war. Human slaves were sending her biological samples from across the galaxy, and the results were extraordinary. The human immune system is not just adapting to alien diseases," Rachel reported to General Thompson via encrypted communication. "It is learning to create targeted biological agents, viruses that only affect specific alien species." "Are you saying humans are becoming living biological weapons?" Thompson asked. "I am saying humans are becoming whatever they need to become to survive. And right now they need to become something that aliens cannot control." The breakthrough came when Dr. Ellen Martinez, working from a secret facility on Titan, made contact with human slaves on Zarian 7. The toxic planet that was supposed to kill humans was instead creating something unprecedented. "The humans on Zarian 7 are no longer technically human," Ellen reported. "They have adapted so completely to the hostile environment that they are essentially a new species. A species that can survive anywhere." But the most disturbing report came from Captain Derek Walsh, who had been monitoring alien communications from deep space. "The Zephyrians are panicking," Derek reported. "Their homeworld has been reporting strange atmospheric changes for weeks. The air composition is shifting to favor human physiology." "That is impossible," General Thompson replied. "There are no humans on the Zephyrian homeworld." "That is what I thought, sir. Until I checked the slave transport records. 3 months ago, they brought a group of human prisoners to their capital city for scientific study. The prisoners have since escaped. But the atmospheric changes started right after they arrived." Thompson felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you telling me that humans are terraforming alien worlds just by being there?" "It looks that way, sir. And it gets worse. The escaped humans have not been found. But Zephyrian cities report that their water supplies are becoming toxic to Zephyrians while remaining perfectly safe for human consumption." Across the galaxy, the same pattern was emerging. Humans were not just surviving slavery. They were transforming the worlds around them. Planets that had been perfectly suited for their alien inhabitants were slowly becoming human worlds instead. The aliens had voted to enslave humanity because they feared human potential. They were about to learn that their fears had been completely justified. They just had not feared the right things. Humans were not becoming slaves. They were becoming something else entirely, something that treated the galaxy itself as raw material to be shaped according to human needs. The enslaved had become the enslavers, but they had done it so quietly and completely that most of the galaxy had not even noticed yet. Admiral Tony Brooks received the emergency transmission, while his hidden fleet patrolled the outer edges of human space. The message was from a deep space monitoring station, and the words made his blood run cold. "Sir, we have lost all contact with the Zephyrian homeworld. 3 billion inhabitants have simply vanished. No distress signals, no signs of destruction. The planet appears completely empty." Tony stared at the communication screen in disbelief. An entire civilization could not just disappear overnight. "Are you certain about this?" "Confirmed, sir. Our long-range sensors show the planet is still there, still habitable. But there are no life signs, no artificial lights, no communication signals, nothing." Dr. Rachel Kim was part of the investigation team that traveled to the abandoned Zephyrian homeworld. What she found there changed everything humanity thought they knew about their own species. The capital city of Zephyria Prime stood exactly as it had been left. Buildings were intact, vehicles sat in the streets, meals remained half-finished on tables. But every Zephyrian was gone without a trace. "This is impossible," muttered Captain Paul Grant as he led the human exploration team through the empty streets. 3 billion people do not just vanish. Rachel knelt by a fountain in the city center and ran her scanner over the water. "Paul, you need to see this. The water composition has been completely altered. It is now perfectly suited for human consumption, but would be deadly poison to Zephyrians. That makes no sense. How could water change like that?" "It did not change naturally," Rachel replied, standing up slowly. "Someone or something redesigned it at a molecular level. And based on these readings, I think I know who." Rachel's scanner detected trace amounts of human DNA in the water supply. Not contamination, integration. Somehow human genetic material had become part of the planet's ecosystem. The escaped human prisoners, Paul realized. They did this somehow. "Not just them," Rachel said, studying her readings more carefully. "These genetic markers show adaptation beyond anything we have seen before. The humans who were here are no longer entirely human. Captain Maya Stevens was leading similar investigations on 12 other worlds that had gone silent. Each planet told the same impossible story. Alien civilizations that had existed for thousands of years had vanished, leaving behind worlds perfectly adapted for human habitation. On the former Korthak industrial world of Nexus 4, Maya found factories still running automatically, but now producing equipment designed for human use. The atmospheric processors were working overtime to create breathable air for humans, while filtering out gases that Korthak needed to survive. "It is like the entire planet was reprogrammed," Maya reported to command. "Not destroyed, not damaged, converted." Dr. Ellen Martinez analyzed samples from all the empty worlds and made a discovery that terrified even her. "The conversion process is not random," she explained to the Emergency War Council. "It is deliberate, intelligent, and incredibly sophisticated. Someone with detailed knowledge of both human and alien biology is systematically terraforming these worlds." General Chris Thompson leaned forward in his chair. "Are you saying that humans are doing this?" "I am saying that something that used to be human is doing this. The genetic evidence suggests that humans in extreme environments are evolving far beyond normal human limits. They are becoming something that can reshape entire ecosystems through biological manipulation." Colonel Jack Turner was part of a special reconnaissance team investigating the transformed worlds. On the former Velixian research planet where Dr. Sam Hughes had been enslaved, Jack found evidence of the transformation process in action. "The Velixians did not just disappear," Jack reported. "They were systematically relocated. I found evidence of mass transportation to the planet's polar regions, where the atmosphere has been maintained in its original state." "So they are still alive?" asked General Thompson. "Yes, but confined to areas that can barely support their basic survival. Meanwhile, the rest of the planet has been converted to support human life. It is not genocide. It is displacement on a planetary scale." Captain Derek Walsh investigated the transformation of alien space routes. What he discovered was even more disturbing than empty planets. The humans responsible for these changes were still out there, moving through space in ways that seemed impossible. "They are not using ships," Derek reported after tracking mysterious movements between star systems. "Long-range sensors detect human life signs, but no vehicles. They appear to be traveling through space using purely biological means." Dr. Amy Rodriguez, who had escaped from the mining planet Xerion 7, provided the explanation that everyone feared to hear. She had undergone the transformation herself and could barely be recognized as human anymore. "The mining operation was never about extracting metals," Amy explained to the shocked War Council via secure transmission. "It was about extracting and concentrating evolutionary pressure. The planet was so hostile that we had to evolve or die. So we evolved. Amy's image on the screen showed someone who looked human but clearly was not entirely human anymore. Her skin had a metallic sheen that reflected the harsh light of Zerion 7. Her eyes had adapted to see across a much wider spectrum. Her voice carried harmonic frequencies that suggested her vocal cords had been completely redesigned. We discovered that human consciousness can direct biological evolution in real time, Amy continued. When faced with an impossible environment, we do not just adapt our bodies. We adapt everything around us. The air, the water, the soil, even the local gravity fields. How is that possible? Asked Dr. Rachel Kim. Human DNA contains what you might call programming language for reality itself. Under extreme pressure, we can rewrite the basic rules of biology and physics in our immediate environment. The aliens enslaved us to worlds that should have killed us. Instead, we made those worlds extensions of ourselves. The implications were staggering. Humans were not just surviving alien slavery. They were transforming the galaxy itself to suit human needs. Captain Ryan Walsh commanded the first official human fleet to patrol former alien space. Where once there had been trade routes connecting hundreds of alien civilizations, there were now human settlements thriving on worlds that had been completely uninhabitable to humans just months before. The transformation is accelerating, Ryan reported. Every day more alien colonies report atmospheric disturbances, water contamination, and ecosystem changes that favor human physiology over their own, President Katie Sullivan addressed the nation from a bunker deep beneath Washington, D.C., and the situation had moved far beyond anything the human government could control. My fellow humans, she began, we are witnessing the emergence of something unprecedented in galactic history. Our people scattered across alien space as slaves have become something beyond human. They are not destroying alien civilizations. They are absorbing them. The broadcast was received on Earth and transmitted to human colonies throughout the solar system, but it was also received by the transformed humans scattered across the galaxy, and their response was immediate and terrifying. Every alien world that still held human slaves reported the same phenomenon within hours of the president's speech. The enslaved humans simply walked away from their captors and disappeared into the wilderness of their respective planets. Guards who tried to stop them found that their weapons no longer functioned properly, and their vehicles would not start. Within days, those same planets began reporting the atmospheric and biological changes that marked the beginning of terraforming. The escaped slaves were not hiding. They were claiming their new worlds. The galaxy had voted to enslave humanity. In response, humanity had evolved beyond the need for slavery, beyond the need for negotiation, and beyond the need for permission to exist wherever they chose. The reckoning had begun. 2 years after the vote to enslave humanity, the galaxy faced a reality that no one had imagined possible. Captain Derek Walsh stood on the bridge of his ship, looking at a star map that showed the scope of the transformation. Red markers indicated alien civilizations that had simply ceased to exist. There were now 127 red markers scattered across the galaxy. It is not extinction, Derek reported to Earth Command. These species have not been wiped out. They have been replaced. Dr. Holly Chen led the scientific team studying what everyone had started calling the liberation zones. Holly had been studying the transformed worlds for months, and her findings challenged everything science knew about biology and physics. The transformation process is unlike anything in known science, Holly explained to the emergency session of Earth's Scientific Council. Human consciousness appears to be directly interfacing with planetary ecosystems and rewriting them at a fundamental level. She displayed holographic images of former alien worlds on the main screen. Look at this atmospheric data from the former Zephyrian colony of Beta Centauri. 6 months ago, the air was 78% methane, perfect for Zephyrian physiology. Today, it is 21% oxygen with trace amounts of nitrogen, ideal for human breathing. How is that possible? Asked Dr. Rachel Kim, who was attending virtually from her research station. The humans who liberated this world did not just adapt to the environment, Holly replied. They convinced the environment to adapt to them. The planet's atmospheric processors, its plant life, even its magnetic field, have been restructured to support human life while becoming hostile to the original inhabitants. Ambassador Paul Grant attended the first diplomatic contact with representatives from the surviving alien species. The meeting took place on a neutral space station, and the aliens' desperation was obvious from the moment they arrived. The Altarian representative could barely maintain his composure as he spoke. "We ask for mercy. Our people have done nothing to directly harm humans. We simply voted as our leaders instructed us." Paul looked at the gathered aliens with sympathy, but also with the cold calculation that humanity had learned from 2 years of enslavement. "You voted to make my species into tools, into resources to be used and discarded. What mercy did you show us then?" "We were wrong," pleaded the Korthak delegate. "We acted out of fear and greed. But surely you can see that this transformation goes too far. Entire civilizations are losing their homeworlds, and entire populations of humans lost their freedom," Paul replied. "The difference is that we found a way to take it back." Dr. Michelle Torres had become the director of what was officially called Human Expansion Research, but what everyone else called the Terraforming Project. From her base on what used to be the Velixian homeworld, Michelle coordinated with transformed humans across the galaxy. "The expansion is not random," Michelle explained in her monthly report to Earth. "The transformed humans are specifically targeting worlds and civilizations that participated in our enslavement. They are following a logical pattern of liberation and conversion. The process was remarkably efficient. Transformed humans would arrive on an alien world, usually in small groups. Within days, local ecosystems would begin changing to favor human physiology. Within weeks, the alien inhabitants would find their world becoming uninhabitable and would be forced to relocate to preserve their lives. It is displacement, not genocide," Michelle continued. "But it is displacement that makes human expansion inevitable. Every world we liberate becomes a launching point for liberating more worlds." Captain Rob Harrison commanded the human fleets that patrolled the expanding zones of human influence. His ships no longer needed to fight battles. The transformed humans had made conventional warfare obsolete. "We received a distress call from the Epsilon Eridani system," Rob reported to Fleet Command. "A Korthak mining operation is requesting emergency evacuation. They say their equipment is failing and their air recycling systems are producing toxic gases." "Same pattern as always," replied Admiral Tony Brooks from his flagship. "How long before the system is fully converted?" "Based on previous transformations, about 3 weeks. The transformed humans work faster now than they did 6 months ago. They are getting more efficient." The efficiency was terrifying to observe. Planets that should have taken decades to terraform were being converted to human-friendly environments in a matter of days. It was as if the transformed humans could think a world into a new configuration. Lieutenant Nina Foster was part of the survey teams that studied newly transformed worlds. What she found challenged every assumption about the nature of the transformation process. The changes go deeper than atmosphere and biology. Nina reported from the former Zephyrian research world of Kepler 442b. The planet's gravity has been altered to match Earth normal. The length of its day has been adjusted to a 24-hour cycle. Even its orbit has been modified to create seasons similar to Earth's. "How is that possible?" asked General Chris Thompson via communication link. "Sir, I think the transformed humans are not just changing the planets. They are changing the fundamental physical laws that govern those planets. It is like they have become living reality editing systems." Dr. Sam Hughes, who had been enslaved on a Velixian research facility, provided insight into how the transformation worked from the inside. He had undergone partial transformation himself and could communicate with both regular humans and the fully transformed ones. "They do not think like us anymore," Sam explained to the research team. "Their consciousness has expanded to encompass entire planetary systems. When they decide a world should be different, reality simply conforms to their will." "Are they still human?" asked Dr. Ellen Martinez. "That depends on how you define human," Sam replied. "They have human memories, human values, and human goals. But their capabilities have expanded far beyond what we consider possible for any biological species." The transformed humans maintained communication with Earth, but their messages were becoming increasingly difficult to understand. Dr. Amy Rodriguez, now fully transformed and operating from the former Xerion 7, sent regular updates that read more like poetry than scientific reports. "The galaxy teaches itself to sing in human harmonies," was her latest message. "Each world we touch remembers what it means to shelter human dreams. The stars themselves are learning to warm human skin." President Katie Sullivan addressed the world for what many believed would be the last time from Earth, the transformed. Humans had made it clear that Earth itself was being prepared for optimization, though they assured everyone that the changes would be beneficial. We are witnessing the emergence of something beyond human, Katie said in her farewell address. Our people, scattered across the galaxy as slaves, have become something that treats space itself as clay to be shaped. They are still our children, still fighting for human freedom and human values. But they are also something new. The remaining alien species had formed a desperate alliance, pooling their resources to find some way to halt or reverse the human expansion. But their efforts were futile. Every world they tried to defend was transformed within days of human arrival. The Korthak Admiral Thex made the final desperate plea for negotiation. "What do you want?" he transmitted to the transformed humans. "What would it take for you to stop?" The response came not from any human leader, but from the transformed collective consciousness that now spanned dozens of worlds. The message was transmitted simultaneously to every alien communication system in the galaxy. You voted to enslave us because you feared what we might become. You were correct to fear us, but you failed to understand what you were creating. We are now what we always had the potential to become. We are what you forced us to become. The galaxy chose slavery over partnership. Now the galaxy lives with the consequences of that choice. The expansion continued. World after world transformed to support human life, while becoming uninhabitable for their former residents. The galaxy that had voted to enslave humanity was becoming a galaxy designed for humanity alone, and the transformed humans showed no sign of stopping. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in a chamber that was now mostly empty. Only 89 species remained out of the original 847 that had voted to enslave humanity 3 years ago. Admiral Kevin Wright sat in what had once been the small human delegation section, but now his people occupied nearly half the chamber. The Altarian Prime Minister stood with trembling hands as she addressed the assembly. Her once proud species now controlled only a handful of worlds in the Outer Rim, far from the expanding zones of human influence. We call this emergency session to propose the immediate and complete reversal of Resolution 847H, she announced, her voice barely steady. We formally request that humanity be granted full sovereign status, voting rights, and all privileges of galactic citizenship. We ask only for mercy and the chance to coexist peacefully. A murmur ran through the sparse gathering of surviving alien delegates. The word mercy had become the most commonly used term in galactic politics, always spoken by aliens and always directed toward humans. Dr. Michelle Torres stood to respond. She had been elected as the primary representative of the transformed humans, though she herself remained only partially transformed, serving as a bridge between baseline humanity and what humans were becoming. The Galactic Council voted 3 years ago, Michelle said calmly. You decided that humanity should serve the galaxy as a resource species. You got exactly what you voted for, the Korthak representative interrupted desperately. But surely you can see that the current situation goes far beyond the original resolution. Entire civilizations are being displaced. Entire civilizations voted to displace us, Michelle replied without emotion. The vote was 8-23 in favor of human slavery, 23 abstentions and 1 opposed. Democracy in action, as your representatives called it. Admiral Kevin Wright stood and activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked former alien territories that had been transformed for human habitation. Blue zones showed the small areas where alien species still maintained independent existence. This is what you created, Kevin said, gesturing to the map. When you voted to enslave us, you freed us from every moral obligation, every treaty, every law that had previously constrained human expansion. You declared us to be resources rather than people. Resources do not need permission to exist wherever they can survive. Captain Rob Harrison reported from the bridge of his flagship, which now patrolled what had once been the heart of Zephyrian space. The transformation of the core worlds is complete, he announced via communication link to the Council. The former Zephyrian homeworld now supports a human population of 50 million and growing. Where did the Zephyrians go? Asked the Epsilon Centauri delegate, the only species that had originally voted against human enslavement. They were relocated to the outer moons of their system, Rob replied. The atmosphere there has been maintained to support their physiology. They are alive, fed, and protected. They are also confined to a space roughly equivalent to what humanity occupied before joining galactic civilization. The irony was not lost on anyone in the chamber. The Zephyrians, who had led the vote to enslave humanity, were now living in the same kind of restricted space that humans had once been limited to. Dr. Holly Chen presented the latest scientific analysis of the human expansion. The transformation process has evolved beyond simple terraforming, she explained to the council. The transformed humans are now capable of reshaping matter and energy at a quantum level. They are not just changing worlds, they are creating new realities. Holly displayed images of former alien worlds that now defied conventional physics, planets with impossible geometries that somehow supported stable ecosystems, suns that had been modified to provide optimal light spectrums for human plant life. Even space itself seemed to bend to accommodate human needs in these regions. "How is this possible?" whispered the Velixian representative. "Human consciousness appears to interface directly with quantum fields," Holly replied. "When enough transformed humans focus on a particular outcome, reality conforms to their collective will. They have become living expressions of the fundamental forces that govern the universe." President Katie Sullivan addressed the council from Earth, which was now the administrative center of human space but no longer the seat of human power. That honor belonged to the transformed humans scattered across hundreds of worlds. "You asked what we want," Katie said. "The answer is simple. We want what you tried to take from us, freedom, the right to exist, the right to grow and expand and become whatever we choose to become. You voted to deny us those rights, so we took them back." The Korthak Admiral Thex made one final desperate plea. "Surely there must be some way to negotiate a peaceful solution, some way for our species to coexist without complete displacement." Dr. Amy Rodriguez responded from the Transformed Collective. Her voice came through every communication system in the chamber simultaneously, demonstrating the extent of transformed human integration with galactic technology. "You had three choices when we joined galactic civilization," Amy's voice said. "You could have welcomed us as equals and partners. You could have asked us to leave and return to our own space. You could have voted to enslave us and use us as resources." The chamber fell silent. "You chose slavery. You chose to treat conscious beings as property. You chose to use democratic processes to legitimize oppression. The galaxy voted and the galaxy made its choice. Now you live in the galaxy the choice created." The transformation was not slowing down. If anything, it was accelerating. Reports came in daily of new worlds being converted, new regions of space being reshaped to accommodate human expansion. Captain Derek Walsh monitored the progress from his command ship at the edge of human space. "The transformed humans have begun working on projects that span multiple star systems," he reported. "They appear to be creating transportation networks that will allow instantaneous travel between human worlds." "What kind of transportation?" asked Admiral Tony Brooks. "We are not entirely sure, sir. It involves manipulating space-time itself. They are essentially creating wormholes on demand." Dr. Ellen Martinez studied the sociological implications of the transformation from her research station on Europa. "The most remarkable thing is that the transformed humans maintain human values and human ethics," she reported. "They are not destroying alien species. They are simply making those species irrelevant to galactic affairs." "Irrelevant how?" asked General Chris Thompson. "Imagine if you were a medieval kingdom and suddenly discovered that your neighbors had developed nuclear weapons and space travel," Ellen replied. "You would not be destroyed, but you would become completely insignificant to their concerns. That is what has happened to the remaining alien species. The surviving aliens were learning to live in a galaxy where they were no longer the dominant powers. The humans provided basic necessities and protection, but they were clearly the junior partners in any relationship." Lieutenant Nina Foster observed the new dynamic from the former Velixian research world where she was stationed. "The Velixians here have adapted to their new status," she reported. "They work in collaboration with humans on projects that benefit both species, but they understand that they are no longer decision makers." "How do they feel about this arrangement?" asked Dr. Rachel Kim. "Relieved mostly," Nina replied. "They remember what happened to species that continued to resist human expansion. Compliance means survival and basic dignity. Resistance means relocation to increasingly marginal worlds." The final vote of the Galactic Council was anticlimactic. The surviving 89 species unanimously approved the complete reversal of Resolution 847H and formally recognized human sovereignty over all territories claimed, through the transformation process. But the vote was purely symbolic. The transformed humans had moved far beyond the need for alien permission or approval. Dr. Michelle Torres delivered the final human statement to the council. The galaxy voted to enslave us because you feared our potential. You were right to fear us. You correctly identified that humans would eventually surpass you in technology, territory, and influence. Your mistake was thinking that slavery would prevent that outcome. Michelle paused and looked around the nearly empty chamber. You created the very future you sought to prevent. By enslaving us, you freed us from every restraint that had kept humans limited to a small corner of space. By treating us as resources, you gave us permission to treat the galaxy itself as a resource to be reshaped according to human needs. The galaxy that had voted to enslave Earth now belonged to humanity, not through conquest or destruction, but through evolution and transformation. The humans had become what they needed to become to survive and thrive. Regardless of alien preferences or fears, the former slaves had inherited the galaxy, not through violence, but through becoming something that the galaxy could not resist or control. The vote had been unanimous enough. The consequences were eternal. In the end, the galaxy had gotten exactly what it had voted for: humans serving galactic needs. The aliens had simply failed to realize that they would become part of those needs, and that their role would be to provide a foundation for human expansion rather than to benefit from human labor. The galaxy belonged to humanity now. It would belong to humanity forever.